All right, it's 5:30 p.m. This is a meeting of the Community Investment Task Force, sorry, first
Here, I may be up.
Monday, August 7th, is authorized by section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code. This meeting may be convened into a closed executive session for the purpose of seeking confidential legal advice from the city attorney on any agenda item herein. The city of Rowlett reserves the right to reconvene, recess, or realign the regular session or called executive session or order of business at any time prior to adjournment. Process for public input: if you are not able to attend in person, you may complete the citizen input form on the city's website by 3:30 p.m. the day of the meeting. All forms will be forwarded to the task force prior to the start of the meeting. For in-person comments, registration forms and instructions are available inside City Hall. The committee may receive comments only on the agenda items listed below. So first, do we have any comments both in person or external? We have no external requests. Okay. Anybody present wish to make comments? All right, very good. First item is to consider the approval of the minutes from the July 17, 2023 meeting. Everybody would like a minute or so to review those if you haven't had a chance. There was one motion that we've left the second blank on it because we couldn't determine who seconded it. But the motion did pass unanimously, so it's been reflected that way.
Anybody want to volunteer for seconding?
Well,
No, I mean.
They was to approve the previous minutes.
so when we've had an opportunity, if anybody wants to make a motion,
Yeah, I can make a motion.
that was John Coate making the motion to approve the minutes. Any second?
I will second.
Miranda Condi. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, it's passed.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
The Parks Director had another meeting, but has indicated he's on his way. Would you be willing to flip items 2 and 3 so we can listen to the presentation of the fire?
Absolutely.
Aaron?
Sure, that'd be fine. Sure, the chief has nothing better to do for me.
Ready?
Aaron, you want a minute to catch your breath and decide to flip the agenda?
That would be great if you
Okay.
could.
Boy, put me on the spot. All right. Thank you again for having me tonight. I appreciate that. Last time we met, I had some pictures and names. I've kind of narrowed the scope down. I've tried to narrow the process down a little bit and try to I'm going to present you with 2 options tonight because we felt like it'd be necessary to try to let you guys decide what you thought would be best for us going forward. We're talking about renovating all 3 of our fire, three of the 4 fire stations. We have one that's renewed, but we're going to go back and renovate the other 3 because they have pretty good amount of updating and upgrading needs to happen. Option 1 is going to allow us to do Station 3 about 2.5 million, Station 1 at 1.75, and Station 4 at 1.5, for a total of 5.75 million to renovate and upgrade and try to standardize as best we can all 3 stations. And get them up to where we feel like that they would be more livable, more functional, less strain, and just a better product for the city. The other option would be to spend 2.5 million on Station 3 and $0.5 million on the other 2 for 3.5 million. We would get Station 3 totally renovated and do the best we could with the remaining funds to do things at Station 1 and Station 4. I have a feeling it will be coming if we do this option, and I'm okay either way, whatever this board decides to do. We would be more than happy to come back to you at a later date to see, if we get more funds. If we're short, we need the bond dollars to go somewhere else. So that's kind of the options we came up with. I'll answer any questions. I'm trying to keep it short, sweet, respect your time.
What are your numbers based on?
But based on the best guess that I can do right now, just pulling some numbers together. To really refine the numbers, I mean, I would have to do a lot more research, but this is the best swag I could do in a short period of time. And I don't think there's a whole lot of fluff in there, because I know we have some foundation issues, and a few of them, and I just don't know what that looks like at this moment.
I guess the question would be, under option 2, back at one side, please. You're saying that you put 2.5 million towards Station 3, and that would basically take care of all problems.
It should take care of all the problems.
Leaving you $500,000 for Station 1 and 4. What's your expectation there as far as?
At least to do the upgrade the HVAC and try to upgrade some of the plumbing issues that we're having at those stations. Some of the cabinetry that's rotted out, things like that.
Would that fix the issues at 1 and 4 with the Walker gear storage and
I think yes.
lighting?
Chief, I regrettably missed the last meeting, and so I didn't hear the presentation that day. Are any of the renovations that you're considering conceivably possibly done in-house with our own staff expertise, plumbing, carpentry?
I'm just gonna say this, and I don't want to be negative, but I think that's what's got us where we're at today. We don't have those expertise in-house to do that. Most of it's subbed out, if you will. So we're trying to get our hands around it, get them back up to where they need to be so that we can probably easily maintain all the stations.
So you would anticipate all of these renovations would be?
Yes. From outside.
Yeah, the big route, if I remember, we'd even talked about that we'd have to put temporary housing at each of the stations.
Okay.
To make
Sorry,
it-
what's that?
No, you're fine. I think at the last meeting too, we were talking about life expectancy extension of 25 to 30 years on the full adoption. If we're looking at option 2, which is 1 and 4.5 million each, they're the newer of the 3. How long can we defer that, do you think, until?
I don't know. It depends on, I mean, if you've ever remodeled anything, you know that once you move take one piece of sheet rock down, it leads to something else usually. So it's hard for me to actually put a pinpoint on that, say,
Mr. Hall, yes, please.
So, Mr. Chairman, let me give a little bit of context for this. You recall, Chief came before you last time and had a really robust presentation. But in fairness to Chief Howard, and some of you asked the question, what the numbers are predicated upon, or if there's been some type of facility study. And really, there hasn't been an official facility study. Chief Howard really didn't know that these projects were eligible. Well, let me restate that. Was informed that these projects were not eligible for bond consideration. So when I came on board and kind of showed the city that not only they're very eligible, and showed other cities who've done very similar projects here just recently in the last bond cycle, I think it was just a philosophical shift. Now, having said that, it didn't obviously allow him time to go out and do the really detailed facility studies that you might prefer, and that we would have preferred, to really give you a more comprehensive or informative answers to some of these questions. So these are not just wild guesses, obviously built off of some degree of knowledge and some of the engagement that he has with the contractor who served as a liaison for us on some of the other projects. But what we wanted, because the other part of this that has nothing to do with Chief Howard, you've heard conversations about moving capital projects over to this to this bond issuance, right? Some of the cash CIP stuff that the city has been funding out of general fund cash dollars that more appropriately are placed in a bond issuance. You also have had projects that came up that were not considered heretofore, such as the signal boxes and other things. All my point to that is it served to reduce your capacity already. You know, you're down several millions of dollars. You'll be down about $15 million already. And so as Chief and I were talking about this, I was looking at ways that we could make sure he potentially get something on the board, make some movement with the worst case, which is Station 3, still begin to make progress with the elders, but probably not fully and comprehensively redo those, but begin the process, and most likely then come back at the second bond issuance in 27, and really have much more detailed information and a more strategic plan of action for those. So I just kind of wanted to make sure we understood it wasn't that he's just fumbling around because he's unprepared, and even more importantly, apprise you as to why you see this change that's a little bit different to give you the options of which direction you want us to go in.
Thank you.
Chief, with the $500,000, at the last meeting, I think you mentioned something about the equipment not being in a safe place or not being able to properly clean. Would that be part of this too?
Station, the bunker gear rooms, yes, we would close those gear rooms in with all, in this, would get them all closed in.
Okay.
And
Do you want to go into the connectivity standard?
and we'll.
Yeah, we talked about it, but just, they're currently not compliant. It's the short version.
Yeah, we're not in compliance with one NFP and they need.
So it's not just plumbing, there's also some other things that would be taken care of, plumbing and size.
Station 3 would get a full remodel, upgrade, update. The others we'd spend the money in the most critical places before this is.
But we'd still be out of compliance in some of the interstations.
I'm gonna bring, that's part of this would be bring those in compliance with that. And then upgrade the HVAC units to what they're calling now the HEPA filter that ship those to the station.
And Station 2 is new, so they're in compliance with the station. Any other questions for the chief?
Sorry, it's option one. Can you go back to?
I think I told you about 6.5. Only hand a little bit, so I could.
I have a question for the chief, but overall, I don't remember what the bonding capacity for this is.
North of 50 million.
About 50, 53, 54 maybe, it's kind of, but let's say 50 million for the sake of argument here. I think just a little bit north of that.
So, thank you for bringing that up. I was going to bring this up later. It really doesn't have to do with this presentation. But I think we know roads and infrastructure alone could eat that entire amount and plus about another $100 million, if not more.
If not more.
So, as we approach this, thank you, Chief, for presenting two options that give us flexibility. The other thing we need to look at when we go back into the parks is we kind of did an informal sorting, if you will, at the last one, and we didn't really slim things down that much. And so we'll talk more in depth about a ranking system that I'd like to bring back that we don't currently have in front of us now. But perhaps we set a dollar amount for parks and for public safety. And then say, that's our target to reach, because the rest of the infrastructure stuff, when we get the PCI ratings and we have confidence in that, it's not gonna, that's gonna be, what are we gonna fix? That's the worst of the worst. So, just a thought. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Here, come on up.
So, I know last time we met, we talked about wet zoning. There's been a lot of questions about pumps. And is it maintenance versus is it replacement? The unfortunate part is we don't have assessment results yet. They told us it probably wouldn't be until the end of August before they could get to us, only because it's summertime and they're basically all of their call outs are for reports. So we can get that stuff to you. They didn't give us a timeline only because they couldn't predict out far enough ahead to be able to say, yes, it will be by this time, but they did guarantee us an assessment. So that being said, with the pump issue, what we had the fire marshal's office come out and do an inspection with us. We typically do this twice a year. We did it this time because we have some issues at Wet Zone. You'll see here some of the pictures in the slide show you corrosion, ventilation, which is in the chemical room. We had an incident last month that really brought a lot of attention to some things, which pushed us to make sure that we were in line and in code with what specific requirements are. So this is some pictures of our chemical room, which has our acid and our chlorine. If you guys remember when you went there, that was the first room that you went into. You'll see that the corrosion, the HVAC, the tidings, everything that's in there really needs to be replaced. That whole ventilation system does not work. If you know anything about, acid and chemicals and things of that sort, if they mix, it's not a good deal. So to help alleviate some of that, the HVAC system in that room, which is roughly 22 years old, needs to be replaced. So this is the picture these are the pictures that are in that room itself. Now going to the next slide, which is plumbing and drainage. As you can see, these are drains that have rusted, have split, are a safety issue when it comes down to it. There's for neck drains, there's for pump room drains, that if something were to collapse or bust, obviously would present a problem for proper drainage for that. And then grease trap requirements in our concession stand. So as you guys know, we do have which is our concession stand, if you will, which also needs some assistance, grease trap, some other things that really need to be installed to be compliant, not only with code, but again, federal requirements as well. So this last slide, is electrical. You'll see the pictures, the two right pictures are in the concession stand area. So we would have to have an electrician come in, rerun and reroute all of that electrical, because if you think about it, it's just hanging. It's like the microphones. So we're having to plug everything in. So in order to be code compliant, we have to have all of the electrical reran in the concession stand. But then the first two pictures are in that same chemical room. So we have some recommendations on how we can fix that, but most of this stuff isn't an easy fix. So the whole point being is if we continue to think that the pumps are maintenance, which very well could be, we would take that into consideration and then replace what I just showed everyone, replacing the pumps that we're replacing. That makes sense? Almost
Could you repeat your last?
This slide.
No, repeat the last thing that you said.
So we've been talking about the pumps, You know, the original plan was to replace the pumps. And I think, you know, with talking but not having a complete assessment of those pumps to truly verify, is it maintenance or is it, you know, these pumps really need to be replaced? We don't know that. So basically giving you two options. Either we maintain it, we keep moving forward with the pumps, get an assessment, or we push the pumps to the side. We take the money that is raised through the revenues. I don't know if y'all know this, but Wet Zone is 100% sustainable. Last year we made $85,000 from Wet Zone. Hoping to be close to something of that sort this year. All that revenue money is put back into the park, whether it be painting, whether it be slide repairs, whether it be, you know, plumbing, irrigation, small items, LED lights, things of that sort. So the thought was, if they truly are maintenance, then let's take the fire marshal's recommendations that says we really, really, really need to replace this stuff and get it done. So we would take that aspect, put the maintenance and the pumps to the side, and replace these projects with the pumps.
Are you saying,
This may just be a difference in terminology. You know, originally, you came in and requested to have the functions placed. Okay. My comment was not that it's maintenance, or anything or whatnot, but rather, there is a step between replacement, okay, nothing, which is called overhaul. Okay. And so, I mean, that's where somebody can come in and take a look, well, determine whether, one, it even needs anything. Okay. Two, if it does, is it an overhaul aspect, which is a couple $1,000s, or is it a replacement, which your numbers were way high? So, I mean, we're not trying to set anything aside for what you were from. Okay, it's just a matter of putting the right level of attention.
I think you're saying that you could take the revenues from the Wet Zone and plug that into the pump.
If that,
If that
that's correct, yes, we can
pumps, if those dollars are
cover that.
How much is it gonna take to address the other maintenance issues besides the pumps? We haven't-
That's what we did.
There's another issue here though, and that's, you're showing deck drains that are corroded, okay, severely corroded. You realize there are piping systems that are associated with those deck drains that go somewhere, okay, and what condition are they in?
Right.
Okay. Difference between replacing a, you know, $70 break.
Great.
So when are we getting the price?
We can work on it as soon as possible.
I would, I mean, for knowledge's sake, sure, at least would like to get a price on your repairs with efficiencies. Because I'd rather use the revenues from Wet Zone to pay for those things, the drains, the other rusted out items, and then, you know, the pumps to be paid out of. I'd bother. Okay.
So if I could just interject, and this is gonna make me unpopular, but two things, your scope is creeping into a place that's almost getting into the budgetary operational expense. Because you're starting to talk about how he reallocates his money. So I just want to caution. Great suggestions, but cautiously understand that saying that here doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. That's where you approve the budget and those things.
Well, it was brought up, and so,
Understood, this probably shouldn't have been, quite frankly. And I just, I always want to keep us in a place that maybe beforehand we weren't, where we're in the right space. And so I think the question becomes, this $1.5 million that he's asking for, do you want to give it to him?
well, no, not that easy. It's about what is it going to cover, right?
I get
And that's the
it, and I don't
conversation.
disagree, I'm just talking about the money part. When you say, well,
Right.
you can reallocate the,
But we're not gonna just put money just to Wet Zone.
not suggesting that.
Right.
When we start saying that you can take the revenues from this source and put it there, that's the part I'm talking about. And I would say that it's a very minor thing, but I don't want somebody to come back later and say the council or you or this board is doing something And it's a minor thing that I don't want to get hung up on. It's just ask all the questions you want, get the answers, but it's about the appropriations. Because those are operating dollars. That's the only point I'm trying to make. Those are not capital dollars. And your scope is capital money. That kind of helps.
Right, right. The capital money, the original presentation was $1.5 million. Some upgrades to some existing,
Yep.
what do you call them?
Features.
Features and paint. And then there was discussion about doing the pumps, which led us into, do we have any idea what that's gonna cost?
Understood.
And the other question was, can we capitalize paint? So that kind of started splitting waters on what are we really talking about?
Understand? And it happens, and the only point I'm making isn't about line of questioning or even the validity of the question. It's not my place, you're good. But it's as we start saying, when you can take that revenue from the wet zone and use it on the pumps. And I'm just trying to keep us in a place where people can't come back and try to invalidate the stuff that you're doing.
Right,
That's
so I think what Parks needs to do for us is come back to us with what is the 1.5 million for?
Fair enough, more than fair.
We don't understand what.
Understood, and I think that's more than fair. And that's not any part that I was addressing whatsoever, because that's more than fair.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything we have listed, we can get individual costs.
Right, but I think we gotta answer the question of the paint. And we need to understand, I mean,
We have to know what is it that we're funding, right? We're not gonna fund paint finance it for 20 years. Not gonna happen. We're not gonna finance a floor drain for 20 years. Not gonna happen. You know, the pump, that's a major capital expense. This one's lasted 20 years, so it kind of makes sense to finance that for 20 years.
So, but it seems that the floor drain is really an indication of maybe a much bigger.
Right, well, maybe.
So the question is,
What?
or the statement would be, let's determine your scope of the problem so that you can get back appropriate amount to address the cause.
Sure.
So where did the 1.5 billion come from? I assume that there was some breakdown of some sort for each one of these items that you kind of have a pot
Yes.
and said, okay, you think for the new paint is this much money, the new features for Turtle Cove is this much. So there was obviously some conventional wisdom and experience put into that, right? Okay. And so if the paint is not something that we're going to finance, then what I'm hearing the city manager say is we just have to be careful where we're allocating the funds, so we don't get into that gray area of we're spending funds on this that you really can't spend those funds, you know, be they bond funds or be they capital improvement funds, you can't spend them the way that we're saying.
He wasn't saying.
Yeah, just because I don't, the only issue I'm saying, the only thing I'm trying to help prevent or guide to is, there was a conversation of you could take the overage, what'd you say, 85,000, whatever it was, that's the only part I'm addressing. Your questions are completely valid. The fact that we're not here prepared to be able to tell you the basis for this or why, not the best look for us, quite frankly. What you want to finance, up to you. I'm only addressing a very, very narrow premise that was discussed so that we don't have someone try to invalidate what we're saying about the appropriation of that money. That's all. But the purview of what you think you want to fund, where you want to place it, as long as they're capital eligible, that is exactly why you exist.
I just had one question. After the fire marshal's inspection, was there an if-then associated after that? If this is not done, then we have to close the wet zone, not? So we're not into a compliance situation.
On the pump room, and you may not have gotten this far yet, with the design and the upgrades for the ventilation. Does that pump room currently, is it just basic ventilation, or is there something like, I don't know if you're familiar with Dectron units? They're specifically meant for corrosive environments. So is what we would be doing, what we would be replacing, is it currently an anti-corrosive system? Or will we go back in with one that is, if it's not? Do you understand?
I don't think he necessarily knows it once.
That's correct.
Okay.
It looked like a standard system.
It-
When we viewed it, it just looked like standard air handler.
Okay, because well, my point is if we don't make those kinds of considerations, then we're gonna be right back here in short order, because, chemicals, the chlorine and the acid chemicals and whatnot, I mean, they're not meant for just standard, HVAC.
So let me interject something, so I don't mean to get into your business, but there is some compliance issues arising at the wet zone, the way all this is done. And it needs to be fixed somehow, some way. So I'm gonna leave it at that, but we need to fix it because it's a problem. And that's Aaron's deal. We are gonna be following it to make sure it gets fixed and brought up where it should be, so we get all these ventilation issues and drainage issues and containment issues and things like that solved. Just what it's worth.
Well, and, I'm thinking in that next step, let's spend, if we're gonna spend money, let's spend the best money now, so that we don't have to have a very similar conversation down the road again. Let's get the best life cycle out of what we're dealing with.
Exactly, the extended life cycle for what it currently is, and ensuring that we have the right skill set at the table to install the equipment that is necessary to be compliant, but ensure that it truly is an asset.
Exactly, like, you're saying,
And eventually a maintainable asset.
some of those things I'm seeing there in the pump room, I mean, they should have just flat out been stainless steel, like there's a band around the pump. You don't put galvanized or anything like that around there, you do stainless steel, because it resists the corrosive, in acidic environment. So, those things come with a premium, right? Stainless steel is more expensive than galvanized steel typically, right? So I'm looking at those kinds of things, so that's why I was asking this.
Kind of from an upgrade perspective.
Yes.
Agreed,
Yeah.
agreed.
Okay.
So, I hate to ask this, but this is 2024 bond money, correct? So the first issuance of this bond money would be at the end of the summer of 2024.
Yes, ma'am.
So if we're having some finance issues, that just worries me a little bit. But I'm sorry, maybe that's just a little
No, you're
off the topic,
I think it's a valid question. I don't know that we have an answer for it, but we should. It's a valid question. And we'll need to be developing an answer for it.
Well, we're gonna talk offline, and we're gonna find out what's what and how to fix that one. So if there are immediate issues, then we need to immediately address them.
I think there's some things we can do to mitigate the immediate issues. Bottom line is it needs addressing holistically at some point in the near future. We're gonna mitigate the issues to make it safe, and so it's safe for everybody to be in. But my point is that we need to mitigate the whole issue and do it right.
The good news is we have now this open season to
Yes,
address
that's
those
what I was
immediate
thinking, where it was just like, where do I budget that $1.5 million? I will just,
I think we've got to do a better job of presenting information. That's just the bottom line. We're saying, give me a bag of money and trust that I'm gonna spend it on something. And yeah, it'd be nice, but I don't know that that's real. And if I were in your shoes, I would hesitate, and I would ask all of the questions that you were asking. And I think it's incumbent on all of us, every person that works for this city that's in this room, to come back to you with more information. Or maybe just not come back to you and ask for money. I mean, but it's fair. We have to be good stewards of the public money. And we're going to waste your time, is what we're doing to some degree. So I have to, that's not a good feeling for us here. But we got to come back to you with more information, not just meeting and say, give me the money because I need it. We have to have some basis, whether it's experience or contractor that we're working with, or quotes that we got, or some plan of action. Some of it may be time driven. Again, being relatively new to the organization, I know some of this was in process before I got here, but I also know some of it wasn't added until I got here to be part of this discussion. And so some of that, they haven't had the time to do the due diligence. But at the end of the day, if we're gonna ask you for money, I know we have to be able to give you more information. And I think everyone here needs to take that message home, because I think we have to.
Perhaps on just a slightly different subject, we're sensing the urgency on what we're talking about on wet zone. What about the erosion issue? How urgent is the erosion situation on our lakeside that we need to address?
Okay, here we go. I'm gonna be really unpopular tonight. That is a question, Mayor said we're gonna talk offline, that is part of the things, that is such a large issue that has many tentacles that border into legal liability, responsibility, and other things, that I think that it would be unwise, at this time at least, for the city to discuss erosion control measures. Because here's what I would say to you, part of what I'm getting to understand here. That take area where the erosion is generally occurring is not owned by the city of Rowlett. It is owned by the city of Dallas. So, not wanting to go into too many of the potential, because I haven't seen the agreements, I've just
Are you speaking more about Sandy Point Park, or are you in general? The erosion
I was just addressing it more in general.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
On our parks list.
Yeah, I think generally, and even if we were to address Sandy Point Park with respect to erosion, but outside of city apparatus and et cetera, I think there's a larger issue that the city has to take a position on, and I haven't found yet that we have, and that is the extent of our legal obligation, and thus then potentially our legal liability with respect to that, as that is an asset that is not owned by the city, notwithstanding that it may be affecting private property owners, but then you get into the issues that are analogous to lot-to-lot drainage and other things that again, are analogous to that kind of issue that's happening. And if you are property owner A and we do something to mitigate your erosion control or your erosion issue, then we better be prepared to do it for A through Z and Z1, 2, and then you're looking at probably $100 million issue, if not more. And so I think we should tread very carefully there. That's not to imply it's not an issue. Literally was talking about an hour-long conversation I had just before this meeting. I just am not caught up enough to know that the city has an official position that it's prepared to take, because there are a lot of things happening with that particular topic. Yes, sir.
I did think that the erosion control also was at Springfield Park. Was that,
That
has
was
that
a-
been addressed?
Previous bond.
Previous one?
We've got that.
Yes.
Yes.
Sandy Point Park is really the urgent issue, immediate urgent issue that has to do with erosion. And I don't know that we have a figure on that
Sure.
yet. A lot of things we're waiting on.
Can I give you my impression of what we've just seen? Aaron showed us some of the internals here going on with the systems. Systems that are supported in park, whether that's be the ABC or the electrical system, or this movement of water and chemicals throughout. Though the park has been in operation since '01, it's managed to survive with the jury rigging that I saw in photographs, which is really unfortunate. It should be replaced with the point in mind that you do it, like Gail pointed out, you don't use zinc-coated bands instead of stainless steel. You expect it to last for 20 years. That has to do with certainly maintenance, but also the original design and not lowball work with regard to construction and reconstruction, particularly if we want it to last another 20 years. Because we see evidence of what has happened now here after 20 years, when it's not well designed, it is not well constructed, it's not done well. Now, I see the same thing happening with the fire station, where possibly low dollar, construction together with components that went into the elements. Granted, the stations have been constructed over time, over a number of decades. But it remains that there's some maintenance that's necessary with regard to each one of these stations, as well as the red zone, as well as the parks, in order for them to be functioning as they should be. Now, the idea of being able to distinguish between funds that would come from a bond and some from operational funds would be in the budget. I would think that these are some of the things you are responsible for. And nevertheless, that they remain items for discussion here, because how do we distinguish them? We don't do that. The idea, however, I think, as the mayor pointed out, we're waiting on information. Certainly with regard to the dollars that are involved, but also what degree of attention each one of these projects takes. Whether it has to be replanning for 20 years use with an increased population as anticipated to take place. Right now, I'm just kind of nonplussed with regard to the idea that things that had not occurred in the past with regard to maintenance and upkeep. And unfortunately, the wet zone, and probably the same thing with public safety, it nevertheless needs to be addressed, because it's not going to get any better with an increased population and use. So I think our obligation is to do the best thing that we can. Like Gail has pointed out, with one thing that we can see here in the photographs. I hate to see extension cords hanging from the ceiling like that. In addition to all the corrosion that normally takes place within an environment like the rest of it. Now, the heavy duty use in a fire station, the design and construction should be fitting for that kind of environment. Enough said.
So, well, I think the other concern too, Jeff, is what was deferred as maintenance and now it being accounted. So
Well,
that's something that I'll-
In almost all these cases.
Not occurred is that maintenance is necessary in order for it to work really well.
that's what I'm saying. So things have gone from being what should be maintenance or,
No.
upgrades along the way for compliance issues and stuff to now they've gotten to the point of becoming capital projects.
And I agree with you when you initially made the comments with regard to, okay, this could be a $50 million bond, but we could easily do another 100 million.
Just on streets.
And,
Right.
yeah, just on streets and else. But it's the idea that, going forward, I think our responsibility is to see $50 million goes into handling of the projects so that they can be readily maintained for the next 20 years.
Agreed, completely.
What's next?
Do you have anything?
But it's not going to be easy, is it?
Never
So-
is.
So we have capital improvement project for a maintenance department?
I'm sorry?
I said, so do we have a capital improvement project for a maintenance department?
Well, rest assured that David Hall and Manal Maladat are handling that situation. So, just leave it there.
So what's the next step relative to the agenda item for the Parks and Recs?
Well, I think you're going to get us actual numbers and the scope of what's in that.
Yes.
Just to mention from our grid, our have-tos versus our nice-tos for parks, 24.9 million haves and about 10 million nice-tos. So against 50 million, to get it all, with half, we used to have a long one here.
And thank you, Brian, that's an awesome segue, if I may.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
24.9 million were the have-tos that was reassessed in the last meeting
Oh, okay, gotcha.
for parks.
Okay, yeah, so
Yeah.
that's gonna have to come down quite a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was on the bonds? Because we have musts and needs,
Yeah,
and then we
one
have
of the agreements that we got
wants.
sent out with our email today, but the wants,
But nice to have.
the nice to haves, were the lakefront at Pecan Grove, the Shrevey, Bonnet Park, and addition to ours.
Right. Those were the only three.
Everything was.
So if we take those away, that's 1.5.
He was close to 10.
So it's 10 million. That still leaves, based on these figures, $26.8 million that we're talking about going towards the parks. So I'm gonna be really blunt here, and I hope people don't get upset about my bluntness. As I said earlier, we could spend $200 million on roads alone. I think we're at the point now where public safety, that's a responsibility of the city. Roads and infrastructure responsibility of the city, and I love the parks. And I've grown up, my kids have grown up in these parks and everything else. But I really think at this point, instead of saying parks wants 26.8 million at this point, we say out of the 50 million, let's go option A with fire at 6.5 million. We say parks, we're gonna give you 5 million and we'll cut it down to 5 million. We're at 11.5. That way, when the information comes out on the PCI and stuff, it will make our job easier because we know what we have to fit into. Right now, we have a target of 50 million, but I think we need to target what are the priorities and what are the necessary city responsibilities versus nice to have. And honestly, parks in general, unless we have safety or compliance issues or things like Kids Kingdom and all that stuff, which are central to who we are as Rowlett, the rest is nice to have. And I think the erosion issue now, kind of being nebulous, takes several of these projects right off the board.
Well, not the city erosion issues. I was speaking to the larger erosion question.
That erosion
Right.
control
Not necessarily this.
covers city
Yeah.
erosion issues.
Okay.
So I would not.
City asset.
City asset.
City asset.
Okay, so it might be back on, and that could be something critical. So it could be, that when we're talking about parks, we're saying, wet zone, we have to do those upgrades there to keep it functional and safe. And the erosion issues are critical to make sure that, we don't lose our parks in those areas, literally lose them. And that might be it, but I really think
I would,
we gotta take a hard look at parks.
I would, the fire chief brought us a second, basically, second plan, which gets us by, at least for Station 1 and Station 4, which have maintenance issues, but they're not in the worst shape. So in a future bond program, you can go and finish that second phase. I would, suggest that $3.5 million is a pretty good deal that can be, we can do in this bond, but that allows for some additional capacity for these very expensive park projects, because none of these park projects are below $1 million. And they're critical.
The wet zones are a business, a profitable business, maybe not a lot of profit, but where does that profit go? Where's it spent? You said it's gone back into.
So last year it went back into the facility for maintenance and upkeep. And I think previous year as well, also to the property performance.
Okay, so could not, back to the city manager point, if it's a business, then shouldn't some of the profits go back towards a major failing point of the business? Pump. Stand up.
So you're right. First, let's start there. You're right. But the way city finances operate, this is not technically a true enterprise fund. If it were, it would have a reserve and all of these other things for the whole purpose of capital asset improvements, et cetera. But think of it like our community development group. They make a profit, if you will, mean to some small degree, not too much, their costs are exceeded by their revenue. It goes back to the general fund, and it's appropriated, you can argue, back into the maintenance of that facility. So you can argue there's an offset, right? There's an offset in the excess revenue generated for the expenditure of some capital improvement. The problem is, said by the chairman earlier, is that there's been so much either poor or deferred maintenance, such to the point that many of these things cross the threshold from ordinary maintenance issues or obligations into a capital area. And so even then, it's unlikely that an $85,000 a year net revenue is going to help mitigate any of these more significant issues to an appreciable degree and in a timely fashion, because that's the other issue. So you're not wrong in anything you said. The issue now is that we're at a juncture where some of this stuff is critical, and while initially maintenance in nature to begin with has now crossed into a territory that maintenance dollars, maintenance and operation dollars alone would not sufficiently nor timely ameliorate their issues.
Thank you.
So, Aaron, my ask for the next meeting would be, you know, we have these things that we know we have to do for parks. And I'm really gonna ask staff to say, we need these to stay functional as a park system, and we can defer everything else. And what does that, what's the dollar figure?
Sure.
Is that okay with that? And then I think it'll give us a better starting point when we do get the information on ranking the roads. You know, what we're looking at. So, and I don't want to shortchange the parks, but then again, too, on the special bond, you know, we just really funded and perfect and stuff, so they're still moving forward as parks go on, so.
The refreshment of the parking lot improvements, where all are those? That's a good chunk.
That was, and the Shorewood,
Shorewood and
the
Springfield.
community center as well, additional parking there.
One line. The second from the bottom.
The extension on,
Say that one more time.
the side of the road, that side of the road is where we
Oh,
were.
yeah, no, that's Springfield.
Okay.
And one of those, just my personal opinion, is that parks maintenance facility is we need that to continue.
It's a critical.
So, sorry, so Springfield Park, because I know there's a problem along Parkville along there, so Springfield, Shorewood, and
Community
the
center.
community center.
Center.
Thank you. I just remember those.
Like when the kids can go back.
That's, I mean, improvements to me means upgrades, but this is actually expanded.
It's been planned, right?
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mary? Thank you.
Here.
I'm not sure how to ask this next question. It's not bad. So, in the previous CIP committees, we had a listing of all the projects, and it was evaluated under 8 different criteria that we all went and did our homework, and then we came back and we compiled the results, and you know, we basically had a cutoff point at what made the cut or what didn't. If anybody on staff has that archive of that, we could plug in this year's.
I think we do.
It's up there. Or create something similar.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean,
All cities do something like this, so this,
all right.
we can create it if we don't have it.
And then when Brian Gallardi was on the last one, he had done one with formulas, but I don't want to
That's the
overcomplicate
one.
it. If it's easy to use and we can all use it, if we want to just plug in the new projects on. If it's not, we'll just take the old fashioned system and, you know.
Not the Excel file, that's the.
Okay.
Yeah, we try to develop, if not reuse something, but come up with a ranking system to make this a little bit easier for you versus tossing 20 million presentations your way and expecting you to somehow rank or quantify but give you some tools that may make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, we need to drive it a little more with data, because I mean, when we did the first review on parks last time, it was, there was nothing. We all said, well, we like that, let's keep it, but when the reality came, we said no on 3 things, and that was before tonight's presentation. We were still sitting at, $26 million, and we can't do $26 million for parks this year. That would be my only ask. If we can get something for that would be wonderful.
I think our city secretary had the data.
Well, it's on SharePoint.
We have actually,
We know what
yes, we have.
Yeah,
We will
just
make
get
sure
the
that
new
it
projects
gets,
loaded.
it gets distributed to.
Or I guess get it ready, but part of, I think what we're counting on is Aaron's gonna do the hard look. And so that list of projects that we're even looking at might get smaller. And then, the only thing I think we still have outstanding, the reason I'm kind of looking at it this way is the PCI ratings are still kind of nebulous right now.
You were gonna get into that, right?
Okay. Well, that was the next agenda.
So this is the updated one from Ross?
This is, no, we don't have that data yet. What we did, let me explain, as I go through the presentation. We went back to the 2018 ratings. We also took a look at the streets, the bonded streets that were actually completed and proposed during previous bond elections. So this is a map, mostly FYI, to show you what has been completed in terms of its design or construction. So these are streets that are either under design or under construction, have been completed since 2015. This is a map of streets where the blue does symbolize panel replacements and asphalt overlays. And the green does represent streets that have been reconstructed or are currently under construction. Between the 2015 and 2023. Blues are more recent. These, just some background information, just trying to show you where things are at. Now, from the 2018 PCI rating project analysis, this is a map of all the streets that were under 60. PCI rating was 60. And there's a color coding at the bottom right that gives a little bit more gradation to those ratings. But nevertheless, these are streets that were considered at that time in bad shape. And then the purple does show those streets from the previous map that are under 32. Excuse me. And the green is just a comparison of those streets that were rated under 60 but have been reconstructed since 2015. And then what we did was we pared that down based on those ratings, the 2018 ratings. And we've come up with a list of streets that we recommend that were either rated poorly, were considered as part of a bond committee consideration, and that have not been reconstructed. So the teal, the light green is what is represented there.
Need one more for something?
Sure.
Okay.
So this is just a list of the worst PCI streets from the 2018 rating. I do apologize that it's hard to read. Our intent is to get you this presentation or the raw exhibits so that you can study this in more detail. I just wanted to show you this, what we've done, what we've looked at, how we've arrived at what we have concluded tonight, and let you mull it over. We do have some costs. These are 50 streets. We've paired, these are also asphalt streets that, let me clarify, these are concrete streets that are the 50 worst. And then these are the 12 worst asphalt streets. There's only 12. We don't have a lot of asphalt streets. Many of them did not score below 60. However, you can see that the last 3 on that list do have a higher rating, but those are asphalt streets that really should be concrete streets because of their use and their status as a thoroughfare.
My question on that, would those Toller, and Chisa be part of the lawn? The assumption then is it would be switched to a concrete? Or
If it were included with the bond, that would be the objective, yes.
Right, because I know ones like Toller and Chisa that we're talking about drainage and everything else too.
Well, that's
They're
right.
right now bondage.
That's right. Because of the asphalt.
Sewer lines, sewer line, storm sewer.
And we did pare it down to a list of recommended streets, which, I don't know, I think you can see the figure at the bottom right there, which is 41 million now. I don't think this list is the final list, of course. But these were 21 recommended streets.
That didn't make any public or anything, so
Yeah.
they're still out there.
Right. And then we also did basically the same costing for the alleys. Which this is what is completed since 2015. These show what's been reconstructed versus what still has not been reconstructed and has a low rating. And then, of course, there is the top 50 worst and our 25 worst.
Thank y'all for doing this.
Yes, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Very helpful.
Okay. So I'll open up for questions.
And
As long as I
it's
can-
sent out.
Yeah,
Oh,
as long
yes.
as I can
Yes.
get, if we could get like the original files, not the PDF, where we can really kind of go into them and look at them with old eyes.
An
You
Excel
mean
file.
a paper?
No, I mean,
Just
the
Excel file.
live.
Can we get a
files,
spreadsheet?
the Native files.
The spreadsheets, yeah, but the maps are, they have to be PDFs.
Okay.
No, that's
Just however,
But these, yes, these,
So,
yes, yes,
So-
we will make sure that they're legible.
a question if it's okay for everybody, that final list of alleys, 25 worst, and then, what was it? 25 worst streets. Is it okay if we just get that in a spreadsheet? Or do we want to see everything?
Let's see the PDF.
Yeah.
Of the map.
And the maps as well, but say when we get the
Yeah, that's what I
spreadsheet,
thought.
we don't want the top 100, just
And
staff's recommendation.
it,
The question is, for me, is you had 2021 recommended streets. So, how do they look compared to our current PCI ratings?
so our plan is while we give this information to you and look it over, when we come back next time, later in this month, we'd like to begin doing some field verifications of these lists. Now, we're not going to make it all the way through by August 21st, which is the next scheduled meeting, but we hope to have some field recon completed so that we can begin to bring back that information to you.
Well, if you go back to your alley map,
A map?
because I can remember, we drove around, and I see on there that little quadrant just to the north of Miller Road, over to the west, a bunch of red alleys, which under the 2022,
You mean right here?
no,
No?
Go west, the other side of Fort Bush.
Oh.
right in there, we were driving around, those alleys were definitely
Good.
right
Well, you can see the red,
there. So,
but on the RAS, everything's fine over there.
right, that's what I'm saying, so,
90 PCI.
that's what I'm asking.
And there's also some green which indicate some reconstruction.
There was
There
some,
was some reconstruction. The alleys.
Yep.
That. So, are you thinking that you're gonna give us these lists of, I can't remember what date that was up there, 2021?
Well, those are
First 25s that didn't make it.
that didn't make it. That's right, and that haven't yet been reconstructed.
And you're gonna field verify those?
That's our intent.
Okay. What are we gonna do with the 2022 information? Just, oh, that's great.
That I think we can.
You know, because
That consultant will deliver that information. We can use that maybe to reinforce our decisions. We do have a little bit of time. I expect that this fall, September, October.
I'm gonna be offline about all this and figure this out. And we should have an update on that the next time.
But that will have been a model then that the consultant could use to update, help us with targeting maintenance. But then when the next bond cycle comes around, we can use that information, I think, with some more certainty and more confidence.
Would it be at all fair to suggest that somehow alleys are a little lower priority than the streets, and therefore maybe focus more on the streets data?
Well, that happened. That happens.
So,
Yeah, but is somebody here is.
I don't know if that's a generalization that holds up or not. There are alleys that people use to access their dwelling. In the past, my understanding of the way the bond election committees worked was there was a dollar figure that was recommended and then passed by council for alleys, and there was no list per se. And the list was left up to the staff to target what they thought were the worst. Yeah, we thought that it would be better to come before you and provide you an actual list. So
you
that
don't need
you-
to suggest that alleys are not important, but
Mhm.
we're given, prioritize it.
well, good.
So that happens, I mean, every bond election, the alleys are always one of the, the lower allocations. You get roughly $2 to $3 million per bond election for alleys. And the rest of the public infrastructure projects go to streets and water sewer projects. So it's not, forefront of the public works moments.
But there is, and just for transparency, there's a part of the budget every year too that's strictly dedicated towards alleys, is there not? Or used to be a.
No, there is, but it's a nominal amount,
Right,
$500,000 a year.
Oh, okay.
Do we gain anything by looking at panels?
So.
Panels versus whole streets?
So panels, so that is something that I would like, as the last bond election with recommend to be allocated in this bond election. But that's gonna be something that when we get further toward making projects, you know, the last year, the last bond election, we did $3 million, which is $1 million a year issuances, concrete panel replacements. I think it's a good strategy to continue that and get it off the general fund, rely on the general fund to pay for those concrete panels, because these concrete panels can last up to 20 years.
Right.
If they're done correctly. So it makes sense to bond those out, and you really just put a general amount. You could say 3, or because of inflation, 3.5, 4 million. And that way we have funds to continue the progress that we made on panel replacements.
So we would give you a bucket of dollars and then they would subject it to the team.
It would basically be done by what are the most traveled thoroughfares, what is the worst, you know, what are the worst panels? Staff would rank those. And they've been doing a pretty good job of that. Over the last 3 years, they've been doing a pretty good job on panel replacements with the 2021 bond dollars.
The 41 million on the streets. Is that all
Those are neighborhood streets.
neighborhood streets?
There are
Except for
few.
Washington Street. She said.
Yeah, toll or technically it's neighborhood street, but I would consider it neighborhood street.
Yeah, I mean, some of these major thoroughfares that are on the list, it wouldn't be a bad strategy to at least fund design and engineering, right? I mean, that way we can start getting funds from other entities like the council of governments and Dallas County or Walla County. Usually that's been successful in the past. Like the Miller Road project, partially funded by Dallas County, the Cheese Road project partially funded by Dallas County. But they really only did that when they knew that the dollars were allocated or design and engineering was done.
It was shovel ready.
And also, I know Cheesa Road, that segment of Cheesa Road is impact fee. We can use the impact.
Can
We
we
won't
get
fund
that
it all.
list separated between the two so we know?
I'm sorry?
Can we get the list separated between true residential and true, what do we think?
Of course, of course.
And I guess what I was getting with the panels is, you know, can we maybe include more streets, you know, more panels? So we might look at a street that has 100 houses on it.
Oh, I hear what you're saying. No, you're not wrong.
You only need a section done and the neighborhood would be happy.
I think it's also real estate.
So you're not wrong, and that's been done in the past. I mean, and it's being done now. There's neighborhood panel projects going on now. But it depends on the age of the area, right? If you're in an area that was built in the 80s or 90s, you're probably needing to look at the underground utilities, because if they're in need of replacement, you may include it until the reconstruction project. If the area is not as aged and the public utilities are in reasonable shape, then you can consider that for panel replacements, depending on the road condition.
And that's something that I hope to, that kind of information is what I hope to gather when we do our field reconnaissance. And knowing that these low PCIs are probably indicative of the entire street segment. The other thing is that the RAS that did do some work and did give us some data to date, that was geared toward panel replacement, identifying and targeting what panels need to be replaced in order to take that street from a lower PCI to a much better rate. So that's what that was for, and whether those dollars are awarded through the bond program or on the annual maintenance, because there is an annual maintenance dollar. That's what that would be
Just one last clarifying question. 41 million that's up there on these 50 streets or whatever it is, that is for the entire street. When we see that street address
for. There is a from and a to limit, and that's what that is for.
there, that is,
Hey, y'all, 140 here. Gail's been waiting very patiently, so.
Oh, that's okay. Oh, just. Thank
One quick question would be the 41 million, looking at 2021 recommended street reconstruction, is that $2021?
No, this is our current.
Okay, my question. Help me out here. Okay, so I was seeing 2018, something from 2018. Then I saw 2021. And then I think I saw 2022. I'm trying to follow, what are we trying to say in each one of those? Okay, so the,
Basically, there have been a series, there was a street condition assessment done in 2018.
correct, got it.
There was also a bond election in 2015, 2018, and 21 that, in which some streets got reconstructed. So
Okay.
we are trying to look at the 2018 rating and subtract out all of the streets that were been reconstructed,
Right,
and also making sure that we are looking at what was requested during those cycles but never made.
okay, so which slide up there is the net effect? That's what I was trying to figure out, is which slide is the net
This is
effect
the-
that
this
carry
is
through
the net
of all of
effect.
those?
The green teal is the net effect.
Okay, so, but that's only as of fiscal year 2021, and now we're in
No, I believe it's
2023.
it's now. It's after everything has been,
That's been
Oh,
updated.
is it the darker one at the bottom?
no, the teal, green.
This is an updated list.
So now
It's the recommended streets for reconstruction, fiscal year.
they, I'll go back and make sure it gets labeled properly.
Oh, okay,
I think
okay.
it is labeled properly,
Okay.
but it sounds like it's confusing, so we'll
Well, it may
label
just
this
be.
as
No, it's
as
good.
our 20, yes, we will label it as our 2024 recommendation.
But y'all, they went out there and compared what projects have been done,
Right.
which ones haven't.
So this is all the overlay,
That's right.
and
That's
here
right.
we are.
Here we are.
Got it, okay, that makes sense, because it was the dates that,
Yes.
it was the dates that were
I understand.
confusing me.
I get that.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have more, well, I have two other more quick questions. One, I think you mentioned a consultant, who is that consultant?
RAS,
Okay,
roadway analysis services.
Roadway assets.
Assets, you're right.
okay, and then, the other question I have is, when we're looking at what needs to be done on these streets as far as paving profile, this is probably more of a technical question. Are we doing borings, like geotechnical borings, and we have a geotechnical
That
engineer?
is part
It's
of the
given-
project.
Okay, so is that part of what RAS is providing?
No, they're
Okay,
not.
that's a
doing
separate
it.
deal. Okay,
That would, when the bond election is done and the voters have chosen the projects, then we go into the design phase, and that's when we contract out a geotechnical.
gotcha. And is that one geotech for all of the proposed?
So, it's typically, it may be, but we have standing professional service agreements with engineers, and they tend to use their preferred geotech. And that has to overlap, we have to have a PSA with the geotech. So we have several PSAs with geotechs, several PSAs with engineering design firms.
Okay.
We marry them together and do a project.
Gotcha, okay, thank you.
Back to your idea, given we only have a limited pot of money, would it be helpful to get agreement that perhaps we look at the top, say, 30 streets and the top 15 alleys rather than,
That was gonna be my point. Building consensus, because that's what our agenda item is, prioritize these.
yeah,
May I suggest the lowest PCI, the lowest cost, the highest rooftops. Those are the priorities, whether alley or street. Those are the main drivers, I think.
That's part of the ranking criteria.
Part of the ranking.
Yeah,
That's part of it.
So I think that's a good idea to do that, but I think as individuals, I'm not saying as a group, we go through every street on that list, but as individuals, go through, because there could be exceptions, and I don't know what they are, but there could be an exception. You know, I might have 5 rooftops, but my PCI might be a 5. you know, and the road could be 50 years old with gravel. You know, at some point,
Yeah, I'm not saying equally weight those,
Right, right,
but
right.
I think the PCI
Yeah.
price first, then the lowest cost to fix those worst first, and then after that, it's in fact, is an alley that's affect more people than the street, and you do the alley instead of the street.
yeah, and I agree. And then you have ones like Toller, which actually don't have tons of rooftops on it, but have become major thoroughfares. You know, it's a traffic issue. So, yeah, I agree with that. I think if we want to ask anything else too, the ask for us, if we get the maps, if we can get a spreadsheet of 50 worst roads, 25 worst alleys, if that can come to us, we can start sorting through that data as homework. I think the other thing that we asked for was some kind of evaluation ranking system for all projects. And if you want, if staff wants to pre-plug in those streets and alleys, at least on that one, so we can start doing that, that would be fine. I think we're looking at May for this, correct?
Yes, well, we actually, that's the election, we need to have all of this done, and a list done by,
I'll call it that.
yeah, December.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it may seem like it's a long way off, but I really don't feel like we had the opportunity to really start evaluating and ranking and putting a package together. That's,
So the last time that y'all did this, I wasn't here, well, I was here, but I just wasn't part of this group. Y'all did subcommittees, is that correct?
Yes.
we did, however, I think maybe we do subcommittees when we get the information back from Aaron, if it's necessary. And the public safety side, it's a very simple ask. I don't think we need a subcommittee for that. So I think our big emphasis is gonna be on what do we absolutely have to keep for parks? And then what are we gonna do with the roads and that?
And I think we also should lose sight when you look at your streets and alleys, as to what infrastructure's involved, whether or not you do a neighborhood or a group versus.
Big point.
That's a good point too. I think the other thing, the value to the maps is, yes, alleys may not be as important. However, if we've started to replace alleys or streets in a neighborhood, and we have some really low PCI ones, maybe there's a worse road, but maybe we need to complete that neighborhood or complete that area and not leave them in a state of half finished as well.
I think what Rodney was getting at was the underground infrastructure.
Right. Yeah, because Toller is, if you decide to redo Toller, that's a major
Oh, that'll be
millions and millions of dollars.
One thing, going back to what I was asking about the overlay and bringing everything forward. So from a data analytical standpoint, so anything that was pulled forward, would it help to know what because we have, I guess, PCI ratings 2018, right? Sounds like we have some still in 2021. Were they redone between 2018 and 2021? So it just carried forward. So we don't know. Well, in the one that we just did, 2022, which
It's
is
trash.
okay. I was gonna say, well, what I was trying to figure out is there any benefit to seeing, to seeing that swing, to be able to prioritize the ones that have swung the most? But it sounds like we don't have those two data points to analyze. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, and I think the other
So that
side,
doesn't help us, it doesn't bias it either.
Can I offer, if I could? We're gonna go back, and you're going to get information in a way that's useful, informative, and helpful, because you have it. So if you guys have all given good ideas, but I think the other part of that can be problematic, is that some of this may be conflicting. I would allow us to go back and do the job that you paid us for. And that is to give you useful information. So if your next meeting is in a couple of weeks, but in a month, even better. So when you come back, hopefully between now and then, if we haven't had time to get you, but you will have a packet of information, presentations, that have value. So you could continue to discuss this, but I think I know what to do, and I think we know what to do, and we just haven't done it here before. Will.
I was just gonna make, go ahead. Sorry.
Next meeting's on what? Next meeting's on the
I don't know when the next meeting is. 21st. So about
This is the makeup meeting.
Yeah, this is the makeup meeting.
about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I just don't want you to get caught
Yeah,
short.
2 weeks. I think it's enough.
We got the promise, next meeting.
Well, the general thing I was gonna say is the VCI ratings in 2018 and 2021, the roads didn't get better. The ones that didn't get fixed, so, you know, so we can do that too.
Road fairies.
So we wish. Anything else? Does anybody have anything specific for the next agenda? I mean, we still have time to submit.
We'll discuss them later.
Okay, my request would be,
So I have-
go ahead.
Is this meeting going to need to change dates because we are
Yeah.
going to do Monday work sessions?
Well, this isn't off though.
I don't know. I don't have the timing of these meetings down, but it's a great question.
But
That
the
is
regular
fine.
meeting,
Oh,
the regular meeting is the third.
Yeah.
I think that's something we need to look into.
Yeah, you
And adjust
definitely
accordingly.
will. Definitely.
Thank you for bringing
Yeah,
this
so
up.
I'm just gonna run it to Jeff whenever
Yeah, you need to.
Okay,
They,
I just want to remind, that we have surveyed using 8 or 9 different criteria, so we become familiar with it. And recognize that there's more than just PCI, traffic and housing. There's a lot of other considerations.
Yeah, there's quality of life, there's
Go
all
into
kinds of things.
evaluating the project.
yeah. Being, if we can, if that's available before the next meeting, if we could get that,
Yes.
we'll review it and come to consensus on how we're gonna score and stuff, but it'll allow us maybe to get a jump start on that. The other agenda items I have, I guess, will be the data coming back on the road, and additional stuff there. And then Aaron, if we could have your, I gotta have this, or,
You will have a holistic CIP package, not piecemeal.
right. But I guess that's the data, I think that we're gonna need to be able to move forward.
We'll coordinate, we will get you what is necessary.
Full
to
package.
make an informed decision.
I was just bringing it up for agenda item purposes, for review those items, okay. Thank you, sir. Anything else for this evening?
This one is one new business and it's not getting better.
Filling vacancies on the board, are we just gonna continue with the one we have?
Did we have alternates? I don't think we have. So do we have either by attendance rules or notification that they're no longer returning? I don't know if we can continue with what we have. I don't know if bringing in new people at this stage for this cycle of the bond will help. We just need to make sure that we keep it pouring.
I'll tell you that, we'll discuss it as a council, because we're gonna be making appointments in September. And so we'll discuss that, whether we need to fill the vacancies, where there are any, and, or make a strategic decision to not fill those vacancies until after, this group has made its decisions. But you're right, throwing in anybody halfway is really kind of disservice to them. And we have a really good group here, so I feel really good about where we're at.
I really do think Ms. Bowers had a good point. The third Monday being a conflict with the council session. We should choose a different day for the meeting. Whether that can be another Monday or
The second Monday,
second.
or what? If you
So-
can't make it, then please.
So
Fair.
if we change it and we want everybody's input,
Yeah.
is it changed, you've decided to move work sessions permanently to the started Mondays, right?
First and third Mondays.
So,
If I can interject, I apologize. Why don't you allow us to give you 3 options or 4 options, and then we'll see what dates and of those work, because if we sit, I think it'd be more productive if we do send you that information, and then you guys come back with us, we'll have a study and see how that works, and then
yeah, my only request though is that we don't vote on a particular date to move this meeting or each month. We say, if we're gonna move it to the
exactly.
second Tuesday or the fourth Thursday, or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, absolutely agree. We have a more concrete date, we won't just have a fluid date on when we're going to meet.
That'd be fine. Anything else? All right, 7:02. Thank you, staff. Thank you, everybody.
Skill this shit.
I have to